Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Daily Dizzle for Tuesday, February 1st, 2011. We are already 1/12 of the way through the year. Kind of fucking scary, isn't it? I'm Tommy Dizzlemits here, as always. We've got a lot of news to cover today, some follow-ups to some items yesterday. We talked about Superman and Stephen King movies, and of course there's more news coming out from those. On top of that, we also have the box office estimates versus the actuals from the weekend. So we're going to go take the time machine back to yesterday and join Tommy Dizzlemits in the middle of his box office actual comparison. So, Tommy, take it away.
So now to jump in for the weekend actuals that came in this morning. The right was on top of the box office, came in a little bit under estimates, ended up making $14.8 million instead of the $15 million they pegged it for. No strings attached, it's held down the number 2 spot, but it was also under, making $13.4 million, 300,000 short of the estimates. A lot of the movies were a little bit under. You have The Mechanic estimated at $11.5 million, made $100,000 less. The Green Hornet was estimated to get $11.5 million as well. It fell $400,000 short. So it looks like people who pegged it to drop off a little quicker, like Kick-Ass when it came out, are starting to have the right idea. Meanwhile, under that, The King's Speech at number 5. It came in just shy of the estimates, estimated with 11.1. It came in with 11.06. Number 6 was True Grit, $7.5 million, so it was 100,000 less than the 7.6. The Dilemma came in at number 7. It actually beat the estimates. It was estimated to have less than $5.5 million for the weekend, and it made almost $5.7 million. So, congrats, 3 weeks in, and it's the first time you finally surpassed low expectations. Number 8 and 9 go to Oscar contenders. We had Black Swan hitting its estimates of $5.1 million for the weekend. Meanwhile, The Fighter came 100,000 short. It was pegged at over $4 million, made just shy of it. Number 10, Yogi Bear, still hanging in there, came in just $3,000 short of its estimates. So that's spot on. And meanwhile, 11 and 12, Little Fockers and Tron Legacy both rounded out with $2.5 million.
Thanks again, Tommy, for the box office actual reporting. Now we're going to jump right into the latest movie news that we have coming out, and there's actually a pretty big story coming out. Baz Luhrmann, not many people recognize the name. He directed, like, Australia, a few other random movies here and there. He's only done 4 movies in his career, and he likes to take his time with them. Recently, in the past couple months, it was reported he actually picked up the rights to the Great Gatsby movie. You know, the unfilmable book that no one has been able to adapt yet. He was getting ready to try it. He was even debating doing it in 3D. Even had Leonardo DiCaprio and Tobey Maguire. He had them feeling around for it, maybe wanting to join on the project. At this point, he's going to make a decision in the next 3 days whether or not he is sticking on board. And if he ends up dropping off, everyone thought he was going to be the one to actually get it done. Because, I mean, if he takes a project, it takes him a while to do it, but he'll stick through it and get all the details done. But it looks like The Great Gatsby is just going to continue on with the reputation of never being made due to the fact that the author was like, no, I will never sell the rights to this. And then even after he died and they still try and get it, it's still not going to work. So, I mean, that's just speculative that it's not going to work now. But, yeah, give it another 2.5 days and we'll know officially from Baz Luhrmann's mouth if he's actually dropping out or not. And if he drops out, you can't expect the big-name stars like Leo and Toby to stay attached. So it'll probably go into turnaround again. And then we'll have to wait another couple of years till someone else tries the impossible task. But as we said, if he officially drops out and The Great Gatsby claims another director as its victim, we will have the full news on that. Meanwhile, moving on to sequels, we seem to have a lot of news on those. But the Final Destination was obviously not the Final Destination because they are working currently on a 5th one. At least one of the good things, I hated the 4th one, just for the fact that the 3D was terrible. At least the other ones, even when they changed the story, you know, they obviously didn't keep the same people in all of them. But they didn't make them so generic like this last one where I couldn't have given a shit and the kills were stupid and the 3D was lame. The one thing absolutely being my breaking point on the movie was the end scene of the movie, where, you know, every Final Destination has that scene where, oh, we got the survivors and we beat death and we're all chilling and, oh shit, we realized that he's probably around the corner and we're about to die. And it was a setup for, like, one of the most awesome end sequences, you know, probably the best one since the first, where the sign's coming down about to hit the dude and then it cuts away. With a big truck and the glass window.
So what does it do as the truck is going towards the window? Goes from real images to CGI, fake skeletons, and it shows, okay, the effects of what would happen when the truck hits it, but that's what they did with pretty much all the death scenes. So if you haven't seen Final Destination, don't go see it because of the fact that you don't get to see anything decent in the way of death. However, one of the good things, at least about the original 3, was the involvement of Tony Todd. Anyone has seen the Candyman movies? He's the Candyman. He's the coroner in the first one, in the second one. And in the third one, he's the voice of the devil as they're getting on the roller coaster. He did not return in the fourth one. However, I think they realized their mistake because they're bringing him back for the fifth one, and he has been saying that he's been told that if the next one, Final Destination 5, ends up opening at number 1, which statistically the series has at least been very good getting close to that. At first it didn't open at number 1 all the time, but as the series has gone on, even though the movies have gotten lamer, somehow they've risen up onto the top. So he said, I guess, if it ends up coming in at number 1 on its release weekend, whenever it is released, they are going to end up doing Final Destination 6 and 7 back-to-back. That could go either way, but if they did the 6 and 7 back-to-back, then at least they would have to come up with a story for both of them. As long as they're not doing the Pirates of the Caribbean rewrites while they're doing the second and third one, and then the third one ends up being a jumbled mess. If they do them together and they have a plan to it, that could probably be one of the greatest decisions they'll ever make, especially if they end up doing the 3D and don't suck with it like the Final Destination did. So Tyler Perry, everyone knows who he is. You don't have to have seen his movies, you don't have to have seen his TV shows, you don't have to know anything other than the fact that he exists to know who he is. He hasn't really done much work outside of his own, outside of the Medea films or his television series. The only place I've really seen him is he popped up in the Star Trek reboot, which was actually kind of neat to see him in that regardless. But he hasn't really done anything outside of the dressing like a fat black woman acting. And Martin Lawrence does that too. So, not really the greatest test of your acting skills. However, his big break, if he ever needed one or needed to prove to people that he could break out of his own material and do other material as well, now Tyler Perry has been cast in a movie, I, Alex Cross, based on the Alex Cross book series, which is apparently one of the greatest series of the modern times, blah, blah, blah. At least that's the quote that the advertisement that is played in my workplace all the time tells me. Regardless, though, it seems like their way of trying to have like a Black Jack Ryan franchise, but honestly, I don't think it's at all an exaggeration to say that with Tyler Perry cast in this kind of a role, this could be his chance to break out as almost the next Will Smith, type deal. Obviously, he's not as young as Will Smith when he first came out and everything, but if he shows that he can do the same kind of acting style and be believable in the lead role of like a forensic psychologist dude, then yeah, I guess it'll work out for him. Though he really is filling some big shoes, as Morgan Freeman already played the role twice in Kiss the Girls and also in Along Came a Spider. So seems like they're doing the Jack Ryan exactly. I mean, Jack Ryan first was played by Harrison Ford for a while before going back down to Ben Affleck. And then you had Morgan Freeman going to Tyler Perry. So gotta love every time something gets rebooted, they've half the age on the dude. So yesterday we told you about how things are starting to heat up on the Stephen King adaptation of The Dark Towers, one of the previously also thought impossible adaptations, kind of along the lines of The Great Gatsby. But it looks like that one's gaining steam at a quicker rate than The Gatsby. And we've got a few other Stephen King remakes, actually, or adaptations, also getting into the news. CBS Films has produced 3 films at this point, and none of them have been great, outbreaking successes. They had the rights to The Stand, Stephen King's story, pretty much about the world getting wiped out, and anyone who survives has to fight like the Antichrist, because it's good and evil. So, one of your basic stories that you've seen in the movies 1,000 times before, but still, it's a Stephen King adaptation, so it could be good. Meanwhile, the CBS Films has now gotten Warner Brothers involved in it, probably so they can split the budget because they're already losing a little bit of money, but we'll see how it ends up turning out, or if CBS Films ends up dropping the ball on it again, as they seem to have done with a few of their other movies. Meanwhile, in other news, Superman, we told you about yesterday, how we have an unknown cast in the role, or at least relative unknown. Now it's time
for the speculation on Lois Lane to begin. Apparently, though, there's a top 5 list going around of 5 top actresses who've actually read for the role. We've got Rachel McAdams from Sherlock Holmes and The Notebook. That wouldn't be the worst choice in the world. You have Jessica Biel. I think she's just made her way around Hollywood way too many times, and I don't think there's anything that she's done necessarily to prove that she should be in a big action movie. Because if you look at, like, The A-Team and Stealth, her previous attempts at them, they kind of did not really well. So we'll have to see if she's able to break the curse or if they don't want her touching their movie. Number 3 on the list, you have Diana Agron. I don't know her because I don't watch Glee, so I don't give a shit. 4, though, I don't like Twilight. I really don't like Twilight. So I really hope that Kristen Stewart is not the one that they're going to get for the role. Meanwhile, if it's not going to be Kristen Stewart, which I'm really, really, really hoping it's not going to be, it's going to be Malin Ackerman. You might not recognize the name, but if you've seen The Heartbreak Kid, the blonde wife of Ben Stiller in that, she was in The Watchmen. She was also in The Proposal. She was also in 27 Dresses. She's almost the female equivalent of who they have in the male lead right now, of someone who's been in a lot of movies but is not necessarily like an instantly recognizable person. The only problem with her is she is a little bit older than all the other contenders, so it's going to be, especially she's older than the dude playing Superman, so who knows if they're going to do that. Though, I remember last time Lois Lane, wasn't it played by, I can't even remember who it was, I just remember she was like 20, 21 at the time, and there was no way that you could see her doing all the things that Lois Lane had done up to that point in her life. And in today's closing news, 2 of the biggest horror franchises from the 80s, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Obviously, they eventually crossed paths when we had Freddy versus Jason. And in the last couple years, now that the remakes are all the rage, they both retreated to that as well. So now, everyone's kind of waiting on a sequel to the remakes. Since the Friday the 13th remake did come out, they had been working on it, and there've been rumors that it's going to go to the snow, it's going to be Jason in the winter, all sorts of different things that they haven't done before. And right now, Brad Fowler, who's one of the producers for Platinum Dunes, who's the company that's done all the remakes. They've also done like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's Michael Bay's company when Michael Bay doesn't feel like actually making the movie. But Fowler indicated that Mark Shannon and Damien Swift, who wrote the original one, are writing a script, and they are ready to go as soon as New Line Cinema is ready to go, but they have not given the green light. But, the Friday the 13th sequel has been kind of stuck at that stage, in that same exact spot for like years. Meanwhile, Nightmare on Elm Street, they are not even working on a script for a second one right now. So his future, Freddy's future, is not looking as bright as Jason's. That could be just inherently how dark they made the Freddy character in the last one, really running away. And at least the previous ones, he was a child murderer. They never said he was a rapist. Eventually they did, but that's why the first one they didn't go into too much detail. It was just he was a bad man and he murdered kids, blah blah blah. Nowadays that we can be more realistic and say, oh yeah, child rapist, because that's the kind of shit that you see on TV on like Law and Order all the time. I guess that kind of killed people's interest in wanting to come back and see Freddy touching more little kids. So that is all the time we've got for today's Daily Dizzle. We do thank you guys for joining us here as always. If this is your first time checking us out, you can keep up with us Monday through Friday. In addition to our weekend updates, you can either click the username Dizzlemits or go to youtube.com/Dizzlemits. Or if those are too hard for you, you can go to our Twitter, twitter.com/Dizzlemits. We have all the updates posted the moment they're up at all those locations. So do whatever you have to do to keep up with us. Just make sure that you make us your new daily stop. And tomorrow's Groundhog's Day, so of course we're going to have a lot of coverage of that. Though, the one thing I don't understand about Groundhog's Day is, alright, if it's sunny, that means nice weather's coming. So why does that mean that winter has another fight in it? Because if the groundhog comes out into the snow, like it's doing right outside the window right now here, tomorrow, how the hell can they possibly say winter is ending when he's getting a foot of snow dumped on him at that moment? That's the question I leave you guys with today. So, as always, we do thank you guys for joining us. We hope to see you tomorrow for our Groundhog's Day edition of the Daily Dizzle. I am Tommy Dizzlemits. We'll see you then.